as soon as I put it up, it just went crazy.
Yeah.
And it just kind of completely, went viral, you could say. I think within 24 hours, it had the 400,000 views that it has now.
That's what we want to do here. We want to take you to the next level. We want you to achieve your goals.
We are live from beautiful Wybusing, Pennsylvania, right here at FXV Digital Design Studios. It's Red Talk, the awesome podcast featuring awesome people. Visit us online at fxvdigital.com or your favorite social networks at FXV Digital. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. I am your host, Freddie Vasquez, and with me is my producer and cutie half, Angie Wicks.
Yo.
Today we have the honor of talking to Jason Hugg. He's a news journalist, he's a blogger, he's an entrepreneur, and an all-around nice guy. What's up, Jason?
This is awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming in, bro.
Yeah. So, what do you want to know?
I don't know. What do we want to know? Everything?
I want to know everything.
Everything. So you're
Might be here a while.
Yeah, well, we got time. You're the mastermind. You're the mastermind
Sure.
behind.
It certainly looks like it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because I don't really go anywhere else for my news. I mean, that's it when it comes to
Thank you.
the
Cool.
area. It's Berks Weekly. It's Reading Magazine. I have a membership.
Mm-hmm.
So I love what you're doing. I love that you're an actual person that lives here and goes around the area
Yes.
to let us know about the news.
Mm-hmm.
How's it feel being that guy now?
I just feel like the regular old me. I mean, all those things, No, I mean, I'm just a regular person, just running around the community. I mean, so I don't really think of myself in that capacity.
Well, I do, man.
But no, that's great though. I mean, thanks for all the praise. I mean, it is kind of nice to hear.
Yeah.
Considering there's a lot of some days are tough running around, other days are I have fun with it. So I cover a wide variety of topics as local news journalists would.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, some are fun and exciting, meeting awesome people. Others are not so great days for people in the community, but things like that are still important news and important things to cover too. So it runs the whole gamut of everything that could happen.
Yeah, I definitely dig that you tend to share all kinds of news.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's bad things that happen every day, but obviously listening or watching the regular news outlets, it's normally doom and gloom, pretty much 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a breath of fresh air to hang out and read your blogs and see your Facebook page. And there is positivity here. It's not all bad people.
Mm-hmm.
It really isn't,
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I know a lot of the people out there, as far as myself and Ange, why news, man? Like, why did you think, hey, you know what? I'm going to start Reading Magazine and Berks Weekly, and I'm going to be, the best source for news in Berks County.
Well, it certainly didn't start with that line of thinking, actually. That's kind of where I am now, and that's really awesome to have a really a big following for the area, and that keeps on growing and everything too. There's more and more people every day that are seeing what I'm doing, and that Berks Weekly, Reading Magazine, the whole thing. But it didn't start out that way. It was very much just really how to highlight people in the community and to highlight things that weren't actually being seen in the regular news. And a lot of people, maybe now versus 5 years ago when I started, might think of that now as like the national news or, national topics and things like that. And I'm just talking about the stuff locally that people aren't seeing, whether that's a volunteer at, a nonprofit that, people don't know who they are, what they do, but they're doing important work for the community, or it's a local business that just started up and no one knows who they are. I've been before I did all this, I had my own small business as well, and I know that's kind of tough too. So it didn't start out with I'm gonna have a big media empire or anything like that. at all. It was very much, how can I just do my part in highlighting what's happening in the community? And then as that kind of the short version of that is, it kind of led into, what else is going on, how many other things are going on, good and bad news, people asking, well, what happened here? How did this happen? That kind of stuff. And then it kind of became, I was the source of, news and things happening, whether that was for, weather or, traffic or, crime or business or any of those types of topics too. So it was definitely a progression. It didn't start out that way.
Right. So which one came first? Was it the chicken or the egg, as they say? Was it Reading Magazine or Berks Weekly?
Oh, Reading Magazine.
And what was the the passion behind it that you wanted to be like, hey, I'm just going to start Reading Magazine?
Well, that, and kind of like what I just said, that came from the fact that I was more of a photographer at the time. Did portraits and family kind of stuff, and a small bit of wedding stuff. And I came from that world of more visual kind of stuff. So that's where it kind of led. I did some work for a few local nonprofits, which was really cool to do. And then basically that's kind of where it led into the news realm, because then it was, hey, we, awesome photos of this event or something happening in the community, or a photo of someone. We want to share that with the local news outlets. And of course, as a client, hey, why not? Go ahead.
Right.
Share that out into the world. So they would do that. And I've had a lot of, different bylines and everything in the news, different, organizations. So that's kind of where it started. And then really, because I like to do things bigger and better, I said, well, I could just start a blog.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of where Reading Magazine originally was just a blog. It was just, can I take, well, actually, originally I just shared it to Hugg Photography at the time, which was my photo page on social media. And that didn't really have a lot of it wasn't really going anywhere. Not with Hugg Photography, but really the images that I was trying to I guess put the blog together for. Mostly because that's a side business. You're taking personal portraits, corporate headshots, that kind of thing. So that audience wasn't specifically looking for news or pictures of local things happening. So I said, well, if you're going to do something a little bit different and start a blog with it, because at the time I didn't really want to get into, I didn't want to be like the photography, everyone knows me for photography and that kind of thing. So I really kind of got more into, can I just then feature my work instead? Instead of teaching people how to do photography, why don't I just feature my work on a separate blog? And originally just called it Reading Magazine. I bought the domain name. Back from high school and all of that, I knew web design and did a lot of that back then. So I kind of knew what I was doing in that realm. So I opened up a blog, put it all together, and just basically just featured images, image galleries, I guess you could say, just kind of writing a little sentence or paragraph, what it was, here's the image from this event or this person, putting it up as a blog. Fast forward a month or two later, because it was very slow, there wasn't really, that big a thing back then.
Yeah.
People in the community started reaching out, and because I made a Facebook page for it, I was very surprised that no one had Reading Magazine as a thing, and because I started to look around, I'm like, well, there's a Philadelphia magazine, like other cities have their name magazines, so like, why isn't that a thing here? So I was like, perfect, I'll just kind of run with that.
Yeah, right on.
That's basically kind of where it started. I just kind of put the blog, what it was a blog, just wrote out little mini stories, featured the photos, and then after a while, people would reach out to me and say, hey, we have this event. And their biggest problem was it wasn't being covered, or not that it wasn't being covered, but really the coverage that they like when they would send out an email to a local news outlet, they weren't getting any responses, and or if they did, they weren't really sure what to do with it and all of that. So or even if they would get coverage for something that they felt was important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, how do you make that decision to say like let's say I contacted you, which I remember contacting you about my grand opening, not for nothing. I'm just gonna throw it out there, but no, seriously, what makes you consider a story worthy? What makes you want to do the press conference or check out why the police are over here? And, you know, I'm sure businesses are opening all the time. What makes you say, I'm going to go to this one? Because you are a one-man show right now.
Yeah. Well, I would say, you know, now there's a little bit, I guess, of a not a different reason now than way back then, but way back then it was mostly, you know, how can I kind of put together the blog and kind of have something new, but also just, you know, take more advantage of my photography skills and kind of reach out to a new audience as well. You know, photographing some of those events and that kind of thing also led into opportunities for that. So that was also, you know, talking with those people in, you know, different organizers about different things. You know, they have families, that kind of thing. So it wasn't really quite like a marketing thing at the time. It was more about just having the blog. But there was that kind of element because I was running all of that as well. It really split off much more when it got into be more of a, hey, we have a story for you, you know. So it wasn't just like a local event. It wasn't just something that, you know, was just happening or usually happen annually every year. It became more of a, hey, you know, we want, you know, we reached out to all the local media to highlight, you know, like one of the volunteers in the nonprofit that is doing great community work, and we really feel like their story is really great. And, you know, we've reached out, they would say, you know, reach out to other people, but no one is interested at all. And so that's kind of where then that would kind of hit me and say, well, then there's more here. And being, you know, more the visual storyteller, I wanted to tell that story. And that's kind of basically, you know, what my criteria is today is, you know, what is the story that, you know, that people really haven't specifically heard of, or, you know, is there a different side of that isn't always being shown too, which is why I also do a lot of live streaming nowadays as well, because that's just the side you're not always seeing.
Right.
You know, live stream. I've always wanted to do a lot more live streaming and really haven't been able to because technology hasn't caught up with that. But live streaming is great because it's not something that everyone gets to see in the community. You get to experience it live. Which is awesome when there's different events happening. And I feel like that kind of gives you a different element to a story like that, rather than just hearing about it later and reading about it and reading, you know, well, what are people saying? You get a little bit of a bigger sense of what happened.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of where it bridges into today is, you know, why do I do the things I do now, or how do we focus on things, or, you know, why is everything, you know, a lot more visual, and we put out a lot more of the raw material, I guess you could say, with live streaming and photos, you know, sometimes even before we put out a big story too. It's because of that reason. I think it gives people a lot more context as to what's going on, and different ways to interact and engage with the story. You know, rather than just, you know, oh, I, you know, just came across, I just saw the link on Facebook, you know, here, and then I get to read it, and and there's nothing else. There is a lot more else. You know, there was the, you know, 20-minute, you know, live video that went with that. There's behind the scenes photos. All of that tells a story the same way. So it doesn't always have to be just framed up into an article.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot going on here in our area, and I really dig that there's a lot more coverage about what goes on in this area. Because even like I talked to Angie, you know, when we first started the podcast, and, you know, automatically, you know, you have aspirations of, like, you know, talking to these specific people. But I realized, you know, there's a lot of cool people right here.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
well,
you don't need to, like, leave, man. Like, there's tons of people here that I still want to talk to that I haven't met, you know, and, like, I'm not finding the courage to start contacting these people, you know, to see if we can get them in here and talk to them and find out, you know, why they love Reading so much and, you know, the area. And that should be a great segue to the next question for you is, why do you love Reading so much?
That's a good question.
Because I see you have a lot of cool stuff in your office.
No one's actually asked me that before.
You have a lot of cool stuff in your office.
Yeah.
And you have the Burke's Billionaire game.
Yes.
All this
well,
Reading.
There's a lot more now, but yeah.
Yeah, and they had like the you know, you sent me one of the Reading bottle caps to put on my fridge. Like, so tell me, man, what's the infatuation with Reading?
Well, Well, the reason why I started collecting, I don't have a real big collection, but the reason why I started collecting some of the stuff was because, number one, I live here, and I plan on continuing living here,
Good.
and not moving away. But really, no, it doesn't seem like any of this stuff's really being saved or kept or any of that. And like the bottle caps are a great example. That was someone who just had a whole bunch of Sunshine beer unused bottle caps, and that was on Facebook Marketplace, and they had a whole bunch of them, a box of them. And so I was like, well, they're unused, like why they're just going to throw them away. In fact, that's what their post said at the bottom, was that if they don't find a buyer, they're just trashing them. I mean, something like that, like, for me, it's just kind of like, well, why don't we just take it off their hands? And I mean, I can give them out to people, but just save it and keep it along, because it is history. It's things that happened in this community. So that's what a lot of that is, things like that. It's more unique items, and mostly because I haven't seen anyone really take an interest in that or really like collect all of that. The Burke's Billionaire game is a good example. I mean, you can find them, if you want to buy one, but I mean, I didn't know before I bought it who else had one or anything like that.
I didn't know until I met you.
Right.
I was like, this is a Burke's Billionaire game.
Yeah, right. And I didn't know either. And so I was just kind of like, hey, it's $10. Like, I might as well buy it.
Right.
And then I found that. And then eventually, like, I would find other things. And then I would meet other people. Like, I would go to buy something like that. And that person would say, oh, you know what? I also have something like this.
I love that.
I was up towards the Hamburg or Shoemakersville area. And I bought I forget what I bought. But the lady ended up having a map of the Reading area, and she's in Shoemakersville, but it was like an old, I forget how old the map was, but it was an older map, and it was a fold-out map, and it just listed all the old streets in Reading.
Wow.
And again, she was just kind of like, I was just gonna throw this away, but if you want this with that, I'll just give it to you. Who else is gonna use this?
Right.
So now I have it framed in my office.
I love stuff like that. I would love to have like old Reading stuff and why I'm missing stuff in this office. I love history, number one. Like, I mean, I love U.S. history. That's like my big thing. Outside of baseball, it's like my next love.
For me, it was something that was collectible within a defined like space, I guess you could say. Because I wouldn't, I guess you could say defined area, but really it was just kind of, because it's fun collecting stuff in general.
Yeah. Us men have a habit of doing that.
Yeah, unlike, I guess you could say, like baseball cards, right? Like there's an unlimited amount, I mean, I know the popular ones, there's only so many of them, but there's a lot you can get into. For the stuff in Reading, it felt like it was very much, like if there's something that comes up, cool, like I can get it, and it's cheap. That's the other nice thing, is that you can get something that really was a part of history that's really cheap, and and then save it too, and then so it doesn't go in the trash or something else. So I think that's pretty cool.
Are you going to be the curator of Reading? Add it to your list.
Well, I was joking with my wife. I'm like, well, I'm like, I'll just open up a Reading museum.
Yeah, she's like, great.
No, we're not doing.
What does she say about all this?
She loves it.
Yeah.
She loves all the new stuff just as much as I do.
Yeah.
So she doesn't, get as involved in it just because, someone has to watch the kids and, and everything. So, and she also has her own work and everything too. But if we could both be doing that, she would be right next to me going to everything too, I'm sure. So, she has no problems with it. I mean, what I do is very much a 24-hour kind of gig.
I was going to ask, like, how many hours a day do you spend on this?
All the time. It doesn't end. And I'm serious about
But
that.
are you waking up at like 2 a.m. because you
No.
hear like something happen?
No, I don't go that crazy.
You're not Nightcrawler status yet?
No, well, I mean, I could, I mean, I will.
You just got that? Oh, he's going to start going around freaking setting up murders.
No, the bad thing is that literally every time I think of you, I think of Nightcrawler, because that's literally like the only kind of like
recent movie.
Yeah, that's the only depiction I have of like photojournalists and things like that.
Oh, yeah,
that
right.
movie.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
I do like that movie.
Great movie.
No, it is a great
Yeah,
movie.
it really opens up
Well, have
your
you
eyes
seen
to...
the Netflix, the Shot in the Dark series?
No.
That's a really cool series too.
I gotta
Yeah,
get
it
to
follows a whole bunch of news video stringers
Whoa.
in California.
That's really
It's
cool.
very well produced. They actually I think they all produced it themselves.
Well, they should have. I think.
Yeah, but it's not like just like kind of like handy cam, the shaky cameras everywhere.
Right.
It's very highly produced. It's really nice well, I guess the documentary, but it just follows what they do. I think what happens here is crazy, and there's things that happen all the time. I mean, out there, it's just like there is a major fire like every night or
California.
yeah, I mean something. So the stuff I see them do, I'm just like, man, I don't know how. Like, that's on a whole different level.
Well, what's the craziest thing you've ever covered?
I don't know.
Or I want to know the craziest thing you ever covered, man. I don't want to hear about the nicest thing. Tell me the something you were like you literally sat there and was
I
like,
don't know.
oh shit. You had the oh shit movement.
Well, I don't think there's anything specifically that's that I've kind of been surprised at, really. I mean, it really I don't know. There's nothing really that's like that. I mean, I guess the first thing, so why, as you asked earlier, why go from Reading Magazine to Berks Weekly?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that was because Reading Magazine was, and rightfully so, was supposed to be about good news and positive stories and positive impact stories in the community. And that's kind of how I wanted it to stay.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like doing those, meeting different people and really highlighting the positive stories. But after a while, kind of like getting into Reading Magazine, just kind of having a blog, it kind of morphed into people, saying, well, hey, there was something else that happened, or there was a major incident, or what happened with that. And for me, it was kind of like, well, how do you go, I don't want to just start putting out different stories into Reading Magazine just because that's what we can do.
Right.
Instead, it was my better option was, why don't we pull that off into a whole different platform where we can really have a different audience. So if that audience from Reading Magazine, if you really want more, more hard news and different crime and other things that are happening in the community, that's where you can find it.
Okay.
If you just want to stay in Reading Magazine and just hear the good, positive stories,
in Happy Land,
you can stay there too. And I kind of felt like that was a good happy medium, instead of, forcing everyone to kind of jump around and go in different areas all the time. So where that comes into, crazy stories is, what year, I forget what year it was, but when the fire on Mount Penn, took the whole brush fire on the side of Mount Penn from Reading High School all the way up to the fire tower. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh, okay.
When was that?
2017, I think.
That was in 2017.
Or is it 16?
Wait, remember when we were at the wedding reception?
Boy,
we saw that building on fire.
Whose wedding?
Your wedding.
That's 20. But I didn't get married in 2017.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
It wasn't 2018. It was, well, maybe it was 2016 or 2017.
2016. I think
it was 2017.
I just started like the business in this area,
Mm-hmm.
so I think I was just totally like
cut
off from like reality.
I forget how it started, but basically brush fires, a whole side of Mount Penn ended up going up. It was in November, so all the leaves are down and everything. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so I was kind of more doing the Nightcrawler-ish kind of stuff where it was like, something happens, go, and so that was kind of one of those things where it was, I forget if I found out about it online, because having sources and figuring out where to get stuff in the community is really big. So I found somewhere where it was happening, and so I got one of my my earlier camcorders, which I use DSLRs and stuff like that now, but I used one of those, and I basically set it up on Spring Street near 5th Street in the city, and pointed like right above where the Spring Street subway is, and pointed it right across onto the mountain. And back then, of course, I had no real good way of getting video from that onto like Facebook and social media. Right. So it's kind of like, okay, now, and I grabbed video of it, and you could clearly see it was all the way marked up, and it was blazing. It was, it was a big fire. And so because all the images so far were blurry images because it was at night. So all of the blurry images, all of the cell phone video was like from someone in Shillington, zoomed in with their like iPhone 4 or something, some camera and it was like you could see it, but you couldn't see it well.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm gonna take my camcorder out there, and I'm just, it was a HD camcorder. I'm just gonna take it out and I'm gonna shoot the video of it. I could zoom in really far with it too. I took my tripod out. I sat out there for like 10-15 minutes because that was basically all the footage you needed out of it. And I got that, raced back to my house because I had no way to edit or anything on the go. So I raced all the way back to my house and I put it up on my laptop. I'm trying to like edit the whole thing together, render it, because like rendering isn't that quick.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there for like 20 minutes going, come on. Uploading it, which of course, at the time is not that fast. Get it up on Facebook, and I ended up putting it on Reading Magazine. And I think I was pretty much the first like major outlet, you could say, to actually get video of it up on social media. You can still find that video on the Facebook page if you scroll down all the videos and find it. But as soon as I put it up, it just went crazy.
Yeah.
And it just kind of completely, went viral, you could say. I think within 24 hours it had the 400,000 views that it has now. I mean, and when people think of things like going viral, it'd be great to have things go viral. That night, it was not that fun. Why? Because the Facebook message or the notifications were just poor. Every time I unlocked my phone, it was just a new string. And that was like when Facebook like notified about everything happening. It was just a new string of messages. Well, not messages, but like notifications. Someone liked it, someone shared it. It would not stop.
Yeah, but you probably see
that.
that.
It was great.
You're
fun.
like
it
you
was
get
fun,
like
but now
crazy.
I couldn't do anything else on my phone.
Well, yeah, but you had to have gotten that rush.
It was, yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, that was initially where I was kind of like, okay, like there are people here that want bigger news and things that are happening, and the other side of that you don't have to be a big TV station to really showcase everything that's happening.
No, of course not. No,
and yeah, and I didn't really think that you had to be back then, but it was just kind of like, really, it's hard to kind of see and kind of get a sense of where the audience is in the area, especially if if you're only getting so many views and so many people are seeing what you're doing, you don't get that sense of like where everyone's at. So that's so crazy things that's happened. I mean, you could pick out a whole bunch of different stories of crazy things that have happened, but like that was certainly one of the craziest on my end because of the reaction it got.
That's
with
an awesome story, man.
Oh yeah, and it's funny because even the 1 year anniversary of that, it blew up again because everyone got it in their like memories on Facebook and stuff, and and people would go back and comment and be like, "Is this tonight?" And I'm like, "No, it was last year." Like, why are you still commenting on?
Well, you're definitely a victim of a lot of people just using your stuff and sharing your stuff, and
that's where out of that comes out a lot of that too, where and that specifically people a lot of the Philly stations reached out to me to use the footage, and everything. But yeah, that's happened a lot too.
Well, but a lot of people don't reach out and ask.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And I've gotten used to that. Earlier on, it wasn't as nice, and I didn't really like it as much, where people would use images or photos or video and use that along with what they were doing, mostly because, you're just starting up. You're just trying to, get that into, you're moving up as everyone else is, so when people take your stuff, it's just kind of hard to have that grasp of like, I can actually do this. Now, with everything I'm doing, I'm putting out so much content now anyway that when it happens, it doesn't happen all the time anymore. When it does happen, it doesn't bother me as much. Of course, depending on the setting.
Yeah,
but,
I would say so.
Of course, if like there was a major company that would use a photo, or like that's a whole different ballgame. But but yeah, I mean, it does happen nowadays, but it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. It's just gonna happen,
Yeah,
when you're putting out so much stuff like I do, and it's hard to put a watermark on everything. I try to do it all the time, but it also, I kind of have to sacrifice, how quickly I have to get something out between, is it really important enough that I take that photo back separately, like I maybe sharing something just from my phone, or do I take that photo back, add a watermark, or do something else with it that, you know, people know it's mine. Sometimes, you know, it's just quicker just to get it out and just do it that way.
And just deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, you know, the crazier the situation gets, the more that's on my mind as a, like, okay, how do I put a watermark here, or like, what should I be doing with this?
Yeah.
And live streaming's been really nice because I've been able to put my little, you know, lower third in the corner, so people know it's from Berks Weekly, which is helpful, you know, when I cover like weather, things like that. The tornado that happened in Morgantown was really helpful for that too, because I think like 50,000 people watched that live when I went down there.
I can remember that.
Yeah. And, you know, we it was live, you know, toward all the wreckage and, you know, a horrible, you know, what happened to all the houses, but, you know, and everything. And no one got hurt, which is great. But for people to see that and everything, of course, you don't want, you know, any of that footage being taken in other places and like, hey, this is what happened. And, you know, so, you know, so you kind of have to get around that and figure out what you want to do in those cases.
All right. So you got Reading Magazine and you're a photographer. And you started Reading Magazine as a blog to get some of your happy news out there, all about the Reading area. Then you kicked it up a notch and said, okay, let's do Berks Weekly. Let's cover more of Berks County, give the people all the news, mainly because you're a local guy, and rightfully so, people care about where they live, which I totally get, which is great. And I've told you this more than once. I really dig everything that you're doing because I like to see what's happening here, obviously, because this is where I lay my head.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly, I didn't realize that as much when I first started all of this, that there's mostly a system of how people view their community, and the bigger system being like if they just moved here or if they're not from the area, they're not really focused on the local news as much. They're mostly just focused on, you know, hey, where am I going? How am I doing this? Where's my house? And all things that are just happening to them. And what I've noticed is really people who are interested in local news are a lot more focused, are community focused, number one, but they're more engaged with the community as well. They're actively doing something in the community that serves other people, or is something in the community, or they're, you know, a lot of times they're politicians or things like that. You know, there's an active role in the community that they're trying to play, which also is why they're invested in the community and want to know everything that's going on too. And that's something it took it sounds like kind of like a no duh kind of thing now, but it really, you know, you don't really think of it that way until you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's why, you know, like I live here now, I have a business here now, like that's why I'm interested in everything that's happening. Right.
No, you're absolutely right about that, because it took me a while to get into Reading and Berks County when I first moved here, because I was still almost like, what's going on Long Island? You know, I was always visiting Newsday, and I'm like, it's like, well, why are you visiting Newsday, man? You don't even live there anymore. Right. You know, it took me a while to get into the transition. But what I was mentioning before was I was talking about the Reading Mag and Berks Weekly. You decided, hey, why not have a podcast also and like a live show? And I know COVID kind of put the brakes on that for a minute, but what are you doing now though? Like I see you just had somebody on, so are you bringing that back to be like a weekly thing or a monthly thing? Like what are we doing with that?
Yeah, basically, so the whole point was actually do it daily before COVID.
That's a stretch.
I did a week.
You
well,
did.
A little bit more than a week, of them, and then all the lockdowns and everything happened. So because my office is very small, so it's kind of like, well,
wasn't that small?
And honestly, I really wanted to start that a lot sooner. And the winter really, it's all cold. No one likes the winter. And I was trying to figure out like what other ways could we do that? And I wasn't concerned with indoor outdoor, but once the spring kind of came along and everyone has a much brighter attitude about things and the sun's out longer and everything, I was like, well, why don't we just bring it back? We'll do it weekly, and I'll just find places out in the community outdoors to talk to people. And I think we've had 2 so far, and I don't really have anyone specifically lined up going forward, but it's just kind of like people who I meet. There's also a request form on the website. People can request themselves in, but those interviews are very specific to talk to people who are actively doing something in the community, a
Right
part
on.
of the community, not just, promoting their business or, or like, hey, I'm a cool person, like talk to me. They're really supposed to be, someone who's actively doing something that's good for the community, and that's kind of, and it's kind of nice because it's kind of like this. It's just kind of an opportunity for them to talk. It's the whole concept of the live interview was supposed to be that, just talk as you want, and we can format it into an article and other things later, but it gives people a little bit more context into who that person is. It's not just, like I said before, it's not just the article of, here's what they're doing, here's why they're doing it, here's how they do it every day. That's it. And wasn't that wonderful? You get more of the sense of who that person is, rather than, just the article you get at the end.
Yeah, I love.
Speaking of the community, I'm interrupting because y'all are gonna talk for like hours if I don't interrupt now. So we do have a question. Hey, it's good to be a good talker. You could take the conversation anywhere. But I do have a question from Javier Ramos for you, Jason.
Hey, Ramos, what's up, Papa?
And he said, "What is your favorite thing to write about?"
I don't know.
You gotta have a favorite, bro. Like you get that story. You're like, oh, this is great. Here we go, cracking knuckles.
I don't know. I don't really have one thing. I don't really have one specific thing. I mean, if there's one thing I would say prefer to write out more than others, and I don't really have as much time, I feel like, to do this as much as I would like to, but that would be to do more one-on-one interviews with people in the community and to really have a much better chance to tell their story and what they're doing.
Right.
I started a lot of that with Reading Magazine. I don't, because I have to do a whole bunch of stuff now, I don't really get the time to do that as much as I like to, but that is really what I like to do. Now that I'm covering more general news with Berks Weekly and, doing a lot more stuff with Reading Magazine, there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's why I think it's crazy.
I do really like to do that kind of stuff. That is what I like to do, and I want to do a lot more of that. But it's also fun to go around and to catch whatever the news of the day is and to write about that too.
Yeah.
So that's why there isn't a specific one thing either.
yeah, for sure. And then I just personally have a question because ever since you brought up this like board game, I've just been thinking about it the whole time.
I've never played it. I just own
Me
it.
neither.
Do you know like the rules though, or like what the concept
It's Monopoly.
is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
fun.
it's Monopoly, just in the Berks County edition. All the pieces or all the areas around the board are what was it?
I didn't buy mine
80s or
yet.
70s game, 80s game. I don't know. The businesses that were around at the time.
Oh, okay.
What was Park Place in Boardwalk?
I have no idea.
Oh my freaking question.
Oh, sorry. That's everyone's
I could
what's
have
the
brought it
Richie
with
Rich
me. I
areas.
didn't know it would be such a big topic.
I thought it was cool. I remember finding one once, and then I forgot all about it, and I definitely want to buy one too, and just have it for the office.
I have two of them, so.
All right, well, if you want to sell one,
Sure.
let's do it. I'll definitely take it off your hands for sure. Right on. So that coming back to everything we were just talking about, there's so many hours in the day. That's why I thought it was crazy that you even started these like shows. So do you plan on doing like a podcast now?
Oh, well, it is a podcast.
Well, it's so then you plan on putting it up on like, because I've only seen it just the live videos.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's on iTunes actually.
Oh, there you go. All right,
and that was
cool.
kind of the point of actually doing the live interviews specifically, was because we can put it out on so many other platforms automatically.
Right.
So as soon as that's done, the live interview is done. I post it on, to SoundCloud, which then goes out to iTunes and everything, audio. It's already on Facebook Live, of course. And then I post it to YouTube directly as well. And then we also write an article about it for Reading Magazine, the website itself, which then goes out to all of those followers too.
Yeah.
And that takes you how long?
So, well, actually not as long as you would think. Really, the production side is actually really quick, which is why I chose to do live interviews specifically, because really turning the audio around, turning the video around is just a matter of uploading it, and then getting the article written. Of course, you have to write that. And and I take photos of people, and that's basically it. So it's actually not that long, and that has been a part of my process, is how can I take something that takes a while to do and shorten that down a lot. And that's that's been one of my challenges on behind the scenes as being the editor and kind of the publisher and kind of putting all this stuff together, is I constantly have to think of what I'm doing to to shorten everything down into a smaller process, so we can get more stuff out.
Yeah, man. Well,
whatever it is, how much ever,
Yeah. What do you plan on doing next? I feel like there's something else now. So you have all these crazy things happening. What are your plans for the future?
I mean, really, there is no plan to do anything specifically bigger or something new or anything like that. Really, the plan is to expand it and actually get into a lot more of the details and to really kind of push out a lot more content, really.
More reporters?
Yeah, actually. And I have a few different contributors now. In the past few months, put together different programs to bring on people to be able to cover more news in the community and to have it sustainable too. Because obviously local media, the whole landscape across the country, either they're being gobbled up by national companies who are buying local papers or things like that and laying people off and firing people, or it's the other way around where they're a small startup, which I'm in a few different groups like that, that don't really have a good way to get themselves to be bigger and to expand. Because of course, one thing that usually people ask me about all the stories, but there's a whole advertising side of it that people don't really see either. That really funds it all, but it's in a different context when you're dealing with a small local startup and a small news outlet rather than like a big TV station. A lot of people think of those as, oh, there's a big commercial by Ford, and that's of course how they're getting their funding and their money. When it comes to local, it's a much different thing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Kind of like any other small business. So yeah, it's expanding, bringing on more contributors, and being able to cover more news. And also to take a little bit off of my shoulders to do that too.
You think?
So,
jeez, what's the criteria for finding somebody to be as hardcore as you are about getting all the news in the area?
I mean, I'm not specifically looking for anyone who's going to do what I do. Really,
but they got to have that passion, though.
Oh yeah, no, of course,
yeah.
Of course they do. But really, I'm looking for people, as far as contributors are concerned, for people who are community-minded people who want to be involved in the community, and because that's really kind of where it starts, and that's kind of where I started. I'm mostly looking for people who are very much like me when I started this 5 years ago, as someone who wants to know more about the community, may not quite know exactly what they're looking for, but is really motivated and interested to kind of get the story and to figure that out, not just for themselves, but to be able to tell other people about that. And that's, not everyone's like that, of course, but really when you have that motivation and you're kind of like, hey, I want to learn more about the community, but I'm also, but this specific topic or highlight something that's happening in the community, it takes on a different element when, you're not just learning it for yourself and, standing by and saying, hey, that was cool, but now you have to put something that's produced together that you can tell other people. Not everyone is always interested in that part, but that's basically kind of the person we're looking for, is the person to really kind of turn around and to be able to tell other people about it in a balanced or formatted way.
That's a really well detailed.
Is it?
I was like, make sure you cut that out so we can put it on his. He can put it on Reading Magazine and Berks Weekly, and he can get everybody start applying. Go to the website right now. So you're definitely doing advertising for local businesses. I know you did put out a little request a few months ago asking people if they'd be interested in doing those things. How would somebody contact you to get their business, let's say, number one, featured, or their good story featured on one of the outlets, and how could they get in contact with you to talk about advertising?
Well, just in general, like I said, if you're a business or a person or a nonprofit too that's doing something that's really community focused first, You can always email in news@berksweekly.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us and to send any of your news there. That could be for an event or something happening in the community. As far as like advertising, that kind of stuff goes, that's kind of where the pandemic really kind of changed a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because before and mostly, and I haven't really specifically told a lot of people this, but like it basically crashed for me. And that it wasn't really fun. Now we're a year later, it's not that bad, but really before that I was mostly focused on, I guess you could say, the traditional advertising. Hey, we have banner ads, we have page views, and like how do we put all this together? Having a lot of the major events cancel out and all of this basically go away really kind of focused on a new way of, and I really wasn't focusing on a new way. It was mostly just kind of honing down, I guess, what I could do for local advertisers and to really reach people and reach my audience. And so I think, now a year later, I think it was, instead of, I guess it was kind of a better thing that it kind of happened, because it was, instead of kind of going down, I would have been going down the line of like the traditional way of like, well, we just have an audience and like you're a business and you want to reach that audience. Now it's much more highly focused. And so I changed a lot of that to feature businesses specifically to the community. We do sponsored articles, which are much more highly focused. And now we essentially you can rent out space in as more of an advertorial, that kind of thing, in Berks Weekly Reading Magazine to get your story out there. But the big difference is, instead of putting together your like a little coupon or something like that, we actually have a reporter go through with you on your story.
Oh, that sounds very interesting.
And the whole thing, of course, is sponsored by that business or organization. So there is a sales element in there. And it's all, we put it out there that it is sponsored. So it doesn't go in every area that our normal content is, but it goes out to our whole audience as well, social media, everywhere. But really, we see a lot better engagement with that. Mostly because people, like any other regular story, they're a lot more engaged in you and that business and what's going on. It's not just a like, oh, we have something, half off today, stop in today. It's, you get the behind the scenes, we like to focus on employees or, the behind the scenes of the business to really, get that story out there so people are more connected to their community, and things that are happening in the community rather than, featuring, just the generic advertising. So honestly, I think that's really kind of cool. We just kind of started that within the past few months, so it hasn't been out there forever. But we're definitely doing a lot more of them now, and it's working out much better.
Yeah, I'm into that. I know you said that a few months ago, and obviously we were still in like deep
I started
COVID
a business directory with the same kind of concept, actually. That kind of goes along with the general membership we have, and I'm sure you saw that too.
Yes.
We changed that a month or so ago. But the new business directory, before it was kind of like a business directory, like you can find stuff on online. Like, why would you have a business directory? And my thought was, well, why are we just going to make it a regular business directory with like name, your business phone number, that kind of stuff? We'll make it into a premium business directory. We'll get people who are in the community. Of course, it's sponsored, so you pay for it as a business, but it's a premium listing. We're going through a little bit more than your average listing. We're telling your story a little bit more. There's a fixed URL with it, and it goes up on our website for people to see what is essentially our verified, or the businesses that we know are good in the community and that are doing good things in the community. So that kind of goes, that's a little bit something different that other news outlets aren't really doing, but it kind of is a neat way to kind of bring back a business directory, but in a different way.
And is this affordable for small businesses?
No, $25 a month for a business directory is pretty affordable.
$25. So that's just a directory.
Yeah.
What about that awesome like feature thing for a business?
Oh, I mean, the prices are different between Reading Magazine and Berks Weekly, but I believe
you have to give us prices. We can look it up, but like, is it something that we can?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm really into that idea. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
like for real. I'm not trying to pull your leg.
No,
like,
I know,
I'm like how long do you think it takes to get one of those up?
Which one?
The big one.
The sponsored articles.
The awesome one, yeah.
I mean, we've had to do them within 48 hours for people sometimes, or we can spend more time with it too. Some businesses or organizations will give us a press release that we kind of work with. It really depends, and that's kind of the nice thing is that owning a news outlet, we can do things at the drop of a hat and get it out immediately. So, when people, and it's funny talking behind the scenes, talking with different public relations agencies or marketing agencies, they're like, oh, well, is there a deadline to print? Is there something else that's going to, we have to wait 2 weeks to have this done.
Right.
And my question to them is usually, when do you want it out? We could have it out tomorrow if all the pieces are in place. We can get this out immediately. And their answer is usually like, oh, okay, like slow down, But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point is, doing everything. We have all those resources to take photos, to interview people right away and to get something out there. And of course, not everyone needs something that quickly. And the quality is there too, of course. But yeah, it can happen as soon as someone needs it.
And how long does that last after a business goes ahead and invests in that?
For sponsored articles, that's a fixed URL. So that's on the website, for forever. Yeah.
That's cool. I really
Yeah.
I'm really into that idea.
Well, and really the design, by that is that not only are you giving them your story, but for, say, a business that would do that monthly, we're writing about different things, of course. But also on your end, as the business owner organization, you're able to take that back and to show your customers and to really promote that. It's not just something that's a coupon that was 3 months ago and now it doesn't make any sense or anything like that. You can actually use that as your own business to highlight to either new customers a year from now, see all these things, that we did this last year. You can use that, in your blogs, that kind of stuff as well. So it's almost a way to build content on your end, but having us do that for you too. Of course, that shouldn't be your only way to market yourself.
No, of course not.
It's a much better way to do that, and to have, as you would know, a lot of small businesses don't necessarily spend a lot of time on creating content or putting all that stuff together for themselves.
Yep.
I know everyone wants to say, oh, I put out stuff on social media. It's not as good as it should be. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but like there is a much higher level that you could be doing. And that's the experience that we bring in there, is that we can actually do that for you. We have the same reporters that are working on other stories. We can have them essentially work for you to put that story together for you. And then we also have an audience of locally focused people who we can also get that out to, which is our big competitive advantage is rather than having a marketing agency do that for you, we can do that. And we have an audience that can really showcase that too.
Rather than having a marketing agency do that for you, they can do that.
It's great. It's amazing.
You gotta love it. That's probably the line of the night, honestly. Why
Why
hire a marketing agency?
I'm not gonna lie. I've been doing BTS stuff. I haven't been listening. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's my favorite part of the whole night was that really, to me, that's money. Like, and I mean that in like not price. I mean like that's money. Like that's money, dude. Like that guy on TikTok.
It was really important for me to put something together that's also meaningful and that really adds value, and not just like, hey, it adds value, but like really does something, that's for everyone. Because I mean, like I said before, before I did all of this news stuff, I had my own small business. And so that was a whole I was very much on that side, that advertising side, where people would walk in and say, hey, the magazine here, or, we have a coupon, section here. Why don't you advertise in it? And it was and at the time it was very much, I guess so, and you don't, it's hard to really put that value together when you're a small business and you're trying to really navigate all of your avenues. Of course, social media has changed that a lot too in the past how many years. But still, it's hard to, even with social media, it's hard to really get a specific thing out of that. What do you get for, I love advertising on Facebook too, so I'm not putting it down, but what do you get out of that as well?
Right.
You're not really getting a story out of that. You're not getting anything out of that.
No,
either.
you have to do all the work, and put it up there, and hopefully it sticks. And now with the way Apple's changing the iOS and all that stuff going,
too. Yeah, I get notifications.
I just got a Facebook email today. They're like, hey, we're here to help you when Apple decides to turn everything off. It's like, good luck, Facebook. That's gonna be a nice hurdle. But Jason, thanks for coming in, brother.
No,
I appreciate it. This has been it's been a great time talking to you. I appreciate you taking the time. Tell the wonderful people out in podcast land where they can find you.
So you can find me a whole bunch of different places. Berks Weekly, berksweekly.com.
Mm-hmm.
Great place to find me there. You can email in if you have news, news@berksweekly.com. That's a great way. I mean, I see most of those emails too, so even if you just email that directly. Social media, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram at Berks Weekly, Twitter. We're also on TikTok now.
TikTok's the best, man. I love TikTok.
That was really cool. And it was a little side thing with that. It's kind of hard. I've had the app on my phone for a while, but I only recently started actually putting out content for it.
Right on.
So I think there's a local audience there we can try to get to.
There is. It's definitely local. I learned that by going to Orlando when I went with Jill a few months ago. The second I got to Orlando, everything changed on my TikTok feed. Yeah. It was all local stuff.
Yeah.
All of it. So when I saw that and I came back home, I remember the first thing I told my networking group was, I don't want to hear any crap about, well, it's only national. It's only like, it's like, nah, man.
That,
it's all
at the beginning, I got that sense. But
yes.
It's, I've kind of, now that I've been navigating it for a few months, I've seen little cracks where like, hey, there's local stuff here.
Oh, big time.
And even the stuff I put out already, I mean, it's not going anywhere quick, but it's gotten some good traction, and you can see who follows you back, and they're local, so
yeah,
that's not bad.
That's awesome. No, for sure, man. So once again, Jason, thank you for hanging out with us here on Fred Talk. I appreciate it, and I hope to have you back on real soon, and definitely send me some info on getting that small business listing. I'm definitely into that.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for checking out Fred Talk. It's the awesome podcast featuring awesome people. For more information, visit us online at fxvdigital.com or your favorite social networks at FXV Digital. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button on our YouTube channel because that's where we put all the past episodes of Fred Talk on. From myself, Angie, and Jason Hugg, thanks a lot for watching Fred Talk, and don't you ever forget your Uncle Freddie loves you. Peace.